All right, so now basically have the whole layout for the engine harness already loomed. We have our branches split out for our injectors, our coils, and everything like so. Now it's time to shorten this mess, throw some labels on it, put some connectors on it, and hopefully we'll have a completed harness by the end of the day. All right, guys, so now we already trimmed it down, so cut out all the fat. As you see, lengths are a little more manageable. It looks a little neater. We are going to trim it down a little bit more just to get them all even, the right height and length. Now we have all our labels on, so as you can see, we have for everything we need, like our ignition coils, our injectors, even up to the ground, fuel pressure, flex fuel, all our sensors, everything is going to be terminated, labeled, so that way if they ever have to service the harness or ever have to look at anything, they could just take one look at the wire and they know where exactly it goes. So now's on to crimping all the connectors, and then hopefully we'll have it all finished and something nice to look at. Alright, so here we have it. The harness is, the engine side of the harness is 95% completed. We have all the connectors for our injectors, our coils, our alternator, oil and fuel pressure, flex fuel, everything that we need inside the engine bay. As for the chassis side, we're gonna change things up and actually wire it inside the car, so that way we can actually fit it, hide it behind the dash, make sure everything is all pretty. So now we got the task of bringing this and wiring it in the car. So let's go. All right, guys, so we got a little carried away. Jevon started putting everything back together. I ended up throwing in the entire engine harness in the car right now. So as you can see, almost everything is connected, alternator and oil pressure down there. We got the 4 R35 coils. The bracket isn't finished, so that's why they're floating right now, but the wires are all bolted down, all held in. 4 injectors all there. We have our wires all the way in the back. We have a ground stud for the engine ground right there. So we got our fuel pressure, our flex fuel. Air temp was tapped in. The zip tie is holding the wire. We have our engine temp that's we're waiting on, so that way we could plug it in. Our speed sensor, which we'll be plugging in a bit. Wires are all held in across the back. Wires are going in. We're leaving the grommet open until we finish all the wiring, and then we'll install our grommet. And we're finishing up our power wires here for the distribution post to run our battery wires to the back. So all in all, the engine bay is 90% complete on the wiring side. Now is the fun part, and I have to take care of all the wiring in here for all our relays, for our computer, our starter, our fans, our fuel pumps, everything right there, and then finish wiring all the wires to the cluster as well. So it's gonna be hectic, but here we go. All right, guys, so we're winding down for the day right now. Luckily, we got a lot accomplished of what we wanted to do. We're able to tack out all the power wires, the ground wires. We got to finish mounting the battery box and a few small things there. Unfortunately, I messed up. I brought the wrong relays, so that's why it looks like this. These aren't the right relays. We're just using these temporarily to power on the ECU and test everything out. Put our fuses over here. We're gonna make a nice panel where the factory ECU cover goes. Engine harness is completely done. The only things really left on the wiring aspect is the stuff for the dash, the wideband, and just ready to start it up. So right now, since we don't have the chassis harness plugged in or anything, we're just gonna jump the wire for the ignition switch and see if we can actually get the ECU to turn on for the first time. So this is our wire. I'm just gonna jump it from the battery power real quick, and we'll see if we can actually get something to turn on the screen. So let's hope for the best. And there we go. So right now, this Fuel Tech has my old map from my first gen RX-7 loaded in. So that's why there's a whole bunch of stuff going on right now. But as you see, we have power turning on the computer. From here, we're gonna test everything. I'm obviously gonna make a new map dedicated, since this isn't a rotary. This is gonna be for a 4G63. Everything catered to the car and everything that we can do to get this car running, hopefully the next morning. And the next time you see this, hopefully we'll be almost ready to start the car. So good, successful night, luckily, and now to tackle this in the morning. So we're wrapping everything up. We're testing all the sensors. One thing that is a big issue for most people when they change their cluster or put a different ECU, this vehicle from factory has a mechanical speedo. So what it is, there's an actual gear-driven sensor in the transmission, and that gear has a cable that runs all the way to the cluster, and that's what generates the speed signal to the actual cluster from factory. Now, since we're replacing it with the Fuel Tech unit, obviously that's not going to be able to be an option. So what we have here is an adapter which will convert our mechanical speedo to an electronic one. So the Fuel Tech can read it, so it can give us our mile an hour. It can give us our gear once we set up the parameters for that. So we can also do traction control or speed-based outputs or controls. So this thing will plug in right into the trans, and we can actually test it right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to plug it into the harness that's right here. It's labeled our speed sensor. Plugs right in, and we're going to test it real quick. So right here I have a drill with a piece of that's going to plug right into the sensor. I'm going to spin it, and then we're going to take a look at the dash to see if it reads. There. All right. So as you guys saw, that's a quick, simple, easy replacement. So that way we can have a speed signal going into our actual dash, and have it so we can read our mile an hour and everything else. So that is one thing that can work for a whole bunch of cars. That has a specific thread pitch, but I have been able to find out that it works for some Mitsubishis, some Nissans, some Toyotas, some Mazdas as well. I actually use them in all my RX-7 builds that are FC or first gen based, since those are also mechanical. So it is a great option. It's cheap, it's easy. I implement them in all my harnesses, so that way everyone can experience that and you don't have to lose any functionality. All right, so now we have the whole harness installed. We wired up all the relays, everything's good to go. Now's the fun part. We got to finish the setup on the laptop, hook up the computer, upload the file, and see if it starts. So let's get right to it. So we got everything sorted out. We went through all the settings, set up the parameters for the injectors, the coils, made sure all our sensors were reading. We even went as far as just testing them all out through the FieldTech software, so we know all 4 of our injectors are firing and our 4 coils. We also checked the timing. The most important thing, you want to make sure the timing is on point, because that may drastically affect your tune. If you're off on that, you can potentially damage your motor, or it may even cause running and driving issues. So now that that's all set, we're gonna try to start this. So right here, as you see on the dash, we actually have a push to start button on there. So we are not actually going to be using the key to start it. We will actually be using the actual FieldTech ECU. So temporarily right now it's in the center console, but we're going to be moving up to the cluster. But for right now, luckily FieldTech has a start button on the software, so we can start it from here for our diagnostic purposes. We're going to be cranking it right now, so best of luck. Let's see what happens. So what you just saw right there, we were able to start it up immediately. The map is a bit rich. I still have a lot of adjustments to do. This was just the first startup, so now we just gotta sort off all the odds and ends, make sure everything else is good, make sure we have no leaks, and then we'll actually be able to get to start running and driving this car. So Jevon, how you feeling?
Awesome.
I know he's happy. We got a lot accomplished. Luckily everything went without a hitch. A couple snags, but anything major that we had to concern ourselves with. So now we're going to continue with the tune and get it running and driving. So there you have it. We got Jevon's car running, FieldTech FT600. Quick, simple, easy. It only took a couple days worth of work between jumping around, doing a few things. Everything is working for the most part. We got our coils are working, our injectors are working. I still am gonna kill them because we need to get a bracket made for these coils, but that's coming shortly. Everything is working the way we want it to, so now it's his job to wrap it all up before we can actually tune this car. It's just small odds and ends. Intercooler, some piping, the exhaust needs to get finished up, but hopefully it'll be back around soon and we can make some power out of this. But so far I know he's happy, we did our job, we're happy. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys soon on the next one.